June 6, 1992. 19-year-old Suzie Streeter and her best friend Stacy McCall had just graduated from Kickapoo High School in Springfield, Missouri. They spent the evening celebrating at parties, making plans for their futures. Around 2:30 a.m., they decided to spend the night at Suzie's house on East Delmar Street with her mother, Sherrill Levitt. By morning, all three women had vanished without a trace. Purses were left behind. Cars remained in the driveway. The only sign of disturbance was a broken porch light globe. 32 years later, investigators still don't know what happened inside that house. If you're fascinated by cold cases that continue to baffle investigators decades later, make sure to subscribe because the Springfield 3 case contains evidence that challenges everything we think we know about stranger abductions. The evening of June 6, 1992 was supposed to be perfect. Suzie Streeter and Stacy McCall had just walked across the stage at Kickapoo High School's graduation ceremony. Both 19 years old, both excited about their futures, both looking forward to a summer of freedom before starting college. The graduation party scene was typical for small-town Missouri. Multiple house parties, teenagers celebrating the end of high school, parents either chaperoning or choosing to look the other way. Suzie and Stacy made the rounds, visiting friends, taking photos, soaking up the atmosphere of their last night as high school students. Originally, the girls had planned to spend the night at Janelle Kirby's house along with several other friends. They'd all planned to leave early the next morning for Branson's Whitewater theme park. But as the night wore on, the sleeping arrangements at Janelle's became complicated. Too many people, not enough space. Around 2:15 a.m., Suzie suggested an alternative. Her mother Sherrill lived alone in a quiet house at 1717 East Delmar Street. Sherrill Levitt was a 47-year-old single mother who worked as a hairstylist. She'd been supportive of Suzie's graduation plans and wouldn't mind if Stacy stayed over. The girls called Sherrill from the party. She was already asleep, but agreed they could come over. Suzie and Stacy left the graduation festivities around 2:30 a.m. and drove to the Levitt house in Suzie's car. What happened next remains one of Missouri's greatest mysteries. When Janelle Kirby and her boyfriend Mike Henson arrived at 1717 East Delmar Street around 9 a.m. on June 7th to pick up Suzie and Stacy for their planned trip, they found an empty house. The front door was unlocked. Suzie's car was in the driveway next to Sherrill's car. The girls' purses were inside, money and credit cards untouched. Their clothes for the theme park trip were laid out on Suzie's bed. But the three women were gone. The only obvious sign of disturbance was on the front porch. The globe covering the porch light had been broken, with glass scattered across the concrete steps. Janelle and Mike initially thought the women might have gone out for breakfast. But as hours passed with no contact, they became concerned. They called other friends, checked local restaurants, searched the neighborhood. No one had seen Sherrill, Suzie, or Stacy. By late afternoon, Janelle called the Springfield Police Department. The initial police response was measured. Adults have the right to disappear, even if it seems out of character. The officers who arrived at 1717 East Delmar noted the unlocked door and broken porch light, but found no obvious signs of struggle inside the house. However, several pieces of evidence troubled investigators. The answering machine in Sherrill's bedroom had messages, but friends had already listened to them and accidentally erased at least one message while trying to check if the women had left word about their plans. The broken porch light globe became a focal point. The bulb was intact. Only the glass cover had been shattered. Crime scene analysts determined the breakage pattern suggested the globe had been struck from below, as if someone had hit it while walking up the front steps. More disturbing was what wasn't found. No signs of forced entry. No indication of a struggle. No blood evidence. The beds appeared slept in, suggesting the women had been home and asleep when whatever happened occurred. If you're finding this case as compelling as investigators did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more mysteries that have puzzled law enforcement for decades. The Springfield Police Department launched a full investigation within 48 hours. Detective Neil Baxter took the lead, treating the case as a potential abduction from the start. Interviews with graduation party attendees revealed that Suzie and Stacy had been in good spirits when they left. Neither girl had mentioned plans to go anywhere except home to sleep. No one reported seeing strangers following them or showing unusual interest in their activities. Sherrill Levitt's background was thoroughly investigated. As a divorced single mother, she dated occasionally, but had no current romantic relationship that might explain the disappearance. Her work at the hair salon had exposed her to various clients, but none with obvious connections to criminal activity. The physical evidence at the house was limited but significant. Fingerprint analysis revealed prints from the missing women, expected visitors like Janelle and Mike, and several unidentified prints that remain in the FBI database 32 years later. The most frustrating aspect was the erased answering machine message. Friends who listened to the tape described it as a strange voice that seemed disturbing or sexual in nature. But without the actual recording, investigators couldn't analyze the caller's identity or determine if the message was connected to the disappearance. As days turned to weeks, the case attracted national attention. The FBI joined the investigation, providing psychological profiles and additional resources. The profile suggested the perpetrator was likely familiar with the area, had observed the women's routines, and possessed enough local knowledge to navigate Springfield's neighborhoods undetected. Tips poured in from across the country. Psychics offered visions, amateur investigators proposed theories, and alleged witnesses reported sightings from Florida to California. Each lead was investigated, but none provided credible evidence about what happened to the Springfield Three. One of the most promising early leads came from a gas station attendant who reported seeing 3 women matching their descriptions at a convenience store around 4 a.m. on June 7th. Security camera footage from that time period had already been recorded over, making verification impossible. Another significant lead involved a local man named Gerald Carnahan, who was later convicted of kidnapping and assault in an unrelated case. Carnahan had been in Springfield the night of the disappearance and owned vehicles matching witness descriptions. However, despite extensive investigation, no physical evidence connected him to the Springfield Three case. The investigation expanded to include searches of abandoned buildings, rural properties, and construction sites around Springfield. Ground-penetrating radar was used to examine locations where informants claimed bodies might be buried. None of these searches produced evidence. As years passed, the case evolved from an active investigation to a cold case review. Detective Baxter retired, but new investigators periodically reviewed the evidence with fresh perspectives. In 2007, 15 years after the disappearance, Springfield Police received what seemed like a breakthrough. A federal informant claimed that the women had been kidnapped by a group involved in drug trafficking and taken to a farm outside Springfield where they were murdered. The informant provided specific details about the location and disposal of bodies. Extensive searches of the described property found no evidence. The informant later recanted parts of his story, and investigators concluded he had likely fabricated details to gain favor with federal prosecutors in his own case. DNA technology has been applied to evidence from the house multiple times as testing capabilities improved. Unidentified DNA profiles from the scene remain in national databases, waiting for a match that could identify unknown visitors to 1717 East Delmar Street. In 2010, Springfield Police announced they were pursuing a theory that the women had been buried under concrete at a Springfield parking garage that was being constructed around the time of their disappearance. Core samples were taken from the garage floor, but no human remains were found. The most recent significant development came in 2021 when Springfield Police released additional evidence photos and renewed their public appeal for information. They emphasized that someone in the community likely has knowledge about what happened, either through direct involvement or secondhand information received over the years. Modern investigative techniques continue to be applied to the case. Cell phone tower data analysis, while not available in 1992, has been used to examine patterns of activity in the area during the time frame of the disappearance. Social media has created new avenues for public engagement with the case. Facebook groups dedicated to the Springfield 3 maintain active discussions about evidence and theories. Some family members participate in these forums, sharing memories and asking for continued public attention. The impact on the families has been profound. Stacy McCall's mother, Janice, became a vocal advocate for missing persons cases before her death in 2006. She often spoke about the importance of not giving up hope and maintaining pressure on law enforcement to continue investigating. Sherrill Levitt's mother, also named Sherrill, lived until 2006 while continuing to hope for answers about her daughter's fate. She frequently expressed frustration with the pace of the investigation, but maintained faith that the case would eventually be solved. The Springfield 3 case has influenced missing persons investigations throughout Missouri and beyond. The importance of preserving answering machine messages and other electronic evidence is now standard training for first responders. The case also highlighted the dangers of well-meaning friends contaminating crime scenes. The cleaning up of broken glass and erasing of phone messages, while done with good intentions, eliminated potential evidence that might have solved the case immediately. Today, 32 years after that graduation night, the Springfield Police Department continues to receive tips about the Springfield 3. Detective David Rader currently oversees the case and emphasizes that it remains an active investigation. The women's cars have long since been sold or scrapped. The house at 1717 East Delmar Street has changed owners multiple times. But the questions remain as fresh as they were in June 1992. What happened during those 6.5 hours between 2:30 a.m. and 9 a.m.? Who broke that porch light globe? What was on that erased answering machine message? And where are Sherrill Levitt, Suzie Streeter, and Stacy McCall? The Springfield 3 case reminds us that some mysteries resist solution despite decades of investigation and advances in forensic technology. But it also demonstrates that hope endures, and that sometimes the most important thing families can do is ensure their loved ones are never forgotten. If you're captivated by cases where the search for truth continues across decades, make sure you're subscribed for more investigations where every lead matters and every tip could be the one that finally brings answers. The graduation night that should have marked the beginning of bright futures became instead a mystery that has haunted Springfield, Missouri, for over 3 decades. But the search for Sherrill, Suzie, and Stacy continues because some questions are too important to leave unanswered.